You're still looking up, even when you're up on the 14th or 15th or 16th or 17th levels. We got up close one time, and I got this great picture. It was calving crazily, and I was kind of sad when we left, but that is Mount St. Elias. Right in the Yakutat area are two of the three highest mountains in North America. Mount Logan is the second after Denali. Mount St. Elias is the third. Fairweather is just a tiny little mountain compared to those three. But we refer to our mountains as a part of the space we occupy as Grandpa Mountain. They're very important to us because they place us. We know where we are when we can see the mountain or the weather patterns or the waters that we are involved with. And this happened to be just a beautiful sunset, so I threw that picture in just to show you how magnificent a great day in Alaska could be. My ancestors, that screen sits in the Juneau State Museum. I was there not long ago. It still belongs to my clan. It's only there on loan. But until we have a clan house, we can't really bring it back, and they take really good care of it for us. Seventh generation I put in there again. This is Grandma Kate, Catherine Chimovinsky. Her dad was Chief Peter Chimovinsky. They lived in Nuchek near the Copper River. And they were also royalty. She married my grandfather Alex, and to her right, your left, that tall kid is my Uncle Eddie. And right underneath him is my dad, Clifford, and then Grandma Kate is holding on to my Uncle David, who was fairly young. Unfortunately passed away at an early age, and I wasn't able to get to know him as well as I would have loved to. This is the parent generation, the third generation, my mom and dad. Gosh, that little kid over on your left, his hair is now white. It's really long. That little girl is my sister Kathy, who is named after Grandma Kate, and unfortunately she has passed on. I wanted to talk to you about marriage and dating, and I thought, how am I going to explain the differences between what I experienced and what my ancestors experienced? So my great-great-grandfather, Dry Bay Chief George, had two wives. We can't have two today because the law prevents it, but he had two, and they were both Thunderbird women. They were opposite clan, and they both came from the interior of Alaska and were arranged marriages done for political connection, and it was all done appropriately. After that, my grandma Laura George had an arranged marriage with my grandpa Dan Smith, opposite clan. And then my grandma broke the mold. She went off to school in Wrangell. A white guy from Birch Bay, Washington was fishing, found grandma, got her pregnant, and left her. That's what I thought. Then he chased after her to Yakutat, married her, had three more children. The first one passed away, but had my mother and three uncles. And then she went down to Juneau and had two more uncles. So the dating patterns and the marriage patterns really changed in that one generation. I put the picture up of me because my mother, her marriage arrangements changed when she met my dad at boarding school. That was a great place for a lot of young people to come and meet individuals who were not their cousins. I used to tease people from places like Arkansas about marrying their cousins, and then I realized when I went through the Tlingit allowable marriages, and I went through the laws for the state of Alaska. The state of Alaska allows it, my tribe allows it. So I don't tease you guys anymore. I understand. We still didn't want to marry our cousins. While I was teaching at the University of Alaska, I was single. I had this beautiful little girl as my daughter. I was happy at that point, saying I just want to raise her. Wasn't interested in being married a third time. And I was approached by a professor friend. She said, here, I think you should do this. She handed me this application for Alaska Men magazine. What's the app that you swipe left, swipe right? Can't never remember the name of it. We didn't have that back then. This magazine was started by Susie Carter to try to connect Alaska men with women from the lower 48. And so I told Pauline, the professor, I said, well, why would I want to do that? Well, it might be fun for you. So I moved it away from my basket, eventually made it into the round file. And then she came and asked, well, did you fill out your application? I said, well, no, I didn't. And then she sicked her daughter on me. Her daughter came in and she said, well, think of it this way. It will be just a small picture of you with maybe 3 or 4 paragraphs explaining who you are, and you might get a few letters from women down south. All we ask is that you answer them. I said, well, I don't know if I want to do that. And then she said something that resonated. She said, think of it this way. It's a story you can tell your grandchildren. And so I figured, well, a tiny little article in a little obscure magazine that is mostly circulating in the lower 48, no problem with that. I sent Susie this picture when she asked for a number of pictures, and she called me up and said, Patrick, do you think her mother would allow her to be on the cover of the magazine? I don't know. I'll ask her, hoping and praying that she'll say no. I didn't want to be on the cover of Alaska Men magazine. So I talked to her mother, and she says, oh yeah, I think that would be wonderful. So we ended up on the cover. I tell people it's not me on the cover. It may be an Alaska Men magazine, but she's the cutie that everybody gravitated towards. How many of you think she's adorable? Me too. I was almost hypnotized last night when you applauded. I was ready to come over and take a couple of pictures. And so I resigned myself to that. It was a larger article than the 3 or 4 that Lolly told me I would have, and it was a bigger picture. And then Susie called up and said, oh, by the way, the cover is also the centerfold. And I'm banging my head on my desk saying, oh, I am not going to live this down. Any of you who grew up in the male culture of athletes and the like know that you're going to be teased mercilessly over being a centerfold. It was even worse when my sister called me up and said, Patrick, you're on the Joan Rivers show. I said, what do you mean? I've never been on the Joan Rivers show. Anyone remember Joan? Yeah. You're on the Joan Rivers show. Well, apparently Susie was being interviewed, brought the magazine that I was in, and Joan is up there saying some pretty disgusting things while looking at the centerfold. Well, I forgive it because this beautiful young lady happened to be the niece of one of my clients while I was practicing law. And she walked up when we were at a AFN cultural show, and Roy said, my niece wants to meet you. So I said hello to her. She had seen the magazine, and she wanted, because of it said some of the things that I had done, she wanted to meet me. Little did I know that 2 years later we would be married, and those 2 boys pictured with Ashley would be the product of that marriage. And she would be very prominent as the president of one of the Alaska Native regional corporations. I wish the marriage had lasted, but it didn't. But I still worked with her to raise our 2 boys, and we're still good friends. And remember that grandchild Lolly was telling me about? I had the Gerber baby as a grandchild. I looked at that picture of my grandson Soul that Ashley sent me, and I said, I've seen that before. So I did a Google search, and all the darn the Gerber baby showed up. Anyone else get that lucky? It wasn't really lucky because I didn't get any royalties from the Gerber baby. We had a very interesting history. This is Glacier Bay in 1680 when the glaciers advanced. They advanced so far down that they were actually out into that icy straits that I showed you. So you couldn't go into Glacier Bay. Glaciers were huge at the time. So in Yakutat, the Hubbard Glacier went all the way out to Yakutat Bay. There was no land for us to settle. When the Tlingit Huna people settled in Glacier Bay, they had a little village that you can see in the picture on the right, down towards the icy straits, and then all of a sudden the glacier advanced. They tell the story